In this episode of the You Not Me podcast, we're going to explore why healthy relationships require a balance between truth and grace, and how leaning too far in one direction can damage trust, growth, and connection. Today, you're going to learn why you need both grace and truth to have any amazing relationship. You'll learn about the dangers of overemphasizing one at the expense of the other. And then last, you'll learn how to balance this in your relationships. So to dive in, Chris, tell me why truth and grace matter.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is we talk about this a lot. We talk about unconditionally loving somebody, and truth and grace is the only way you can unconditionally love somebody. And I think that's part of the biggest problem is in the amount of loneliness and the way people struggle with relationships today, the anxiety is because people feel like they can't truly act like themselves. They can't be who they are. They have to strive and prove how great they are for people to like them. But also, then we're so afraid if people actually know all of our mistakes or know that we fall short in some areas that we're not going to be accepted. We're not good enough, and that's where unconditional love comes into play. But also that ability to speak truth and grace, that ability to love somebody so much that you have grace and empathy and you sympathize with them and you want to walk with them through hard times, but also when they're doing things that aren't great and they're whether it's hurting other people, hurting themselves, maybe even hurting you, can you have the strength and courage to speak truth into them to help them see like, hey, you're doing something that is actually leading you off not only a bad path that may lead you to destruction later on if it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Like, for example, parenting and you have a child that's doing something wrong, you can't just be their friend. You have to actually speak truth into their life as well. But also, if you don't ever speak truth, that relationship can then basically just fragilely crack and crack and crack and then fall apart. And so that's why we need truth and grace is because unconditional love cannot flow unless we have truth and grace.
I think that most people have a pretty sound working definition of truth and grace, but sometimes like these big picture concepts can get lost. Like we tend to throw words around without like always understanding the full meaning. Or someone might say grace and they might have one understanding of it when really someone means something completely different. For me, truth has always kind of been defined as just like the way that things actually are. Grace has always been giving someone something that they don't deserve. Maybe if you could elaborate on each of those definitions and just take a little bit of a deeper dive into taking a stab at defining each of those.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at whether it's in master's degrees or in universities, there are all these business ethics that are popping up, and we're talking that business ethics is such a buzzword right now, and part of that is because our ethics are breaking down because it's kind of like finger in the air, like which way is the wind going and what do I want? I mean, whether it's self-justification or I'm trying to do something that I want to achieve, so I'm going to justify it. And the ethics, who cares about the ethics? The ethics are out the window. And so what that leads to is Enron. What that leads to is accounting scandals. What that leads to is broken trust in relationships. So there has to be a truth. There has to be like what is the worldview that you look at that what is the lens that you look through at life and at the world that you abide by, that you live by. And if it's just, well, how I feel today, or the problem is with people saying just you do you, well, then we're living based on emotion and based on feeling for the day versus like what is absolute truth. And if you look at a lot of different things, if you look at whether again it's code of ethics, whether it's laws that are written to protect society and protect other people from people and protect. I mean, sometimes it's protecting us from ourselves. And I mean, drinking and driving is a terrible thing. Not to mention, can it hurt somebody else if obviously we get caught and we get in an accident. Unfortunately, my grandmother was killed by a drunk driver that swerved off the road and hit her. So the impact that it had on my family was terrible, but also the impact on that person. But then also long term, I mean, that person having to live with that, and it all goes back to like, there's a reason why you don't drink and drive. There's a law, and just like heroin. There's a yeah. I think we can pretty much all agree it's probably not good to sell heroin to kids. children shouldn't be sold heroin, but at the same time, there are people that do it because they have no ethics, they have no true morals. And so, what is the truth that we hold to? And for me, it goes back to my faith. And for me, my truth actually should protect other people. You should be a better person, and you should actually feel more comfortable around me because of my faith, because of my worldview that says, because I've been so loved by Jesus and what he did for me, that I can then love you and serve you and sacrifice for you. And I'm not going to be dishonest. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to do everything I can to be high in integrity and high in character. And so that truth is such a big deal for how we live out our life. What is the truth that we're holding to?
Yeah, and then maybe if you can just give, a practical example or two in terms of if someone wants to live in truth, walk in truth, what does that look like in the day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing for us is sometimes we get so busy and so head down, and whether it's so many things getting piled on top of us that are stressors or whatever, we just we just react. We no longer take time to actually think or to really kind of step back and take the big picture in. And so when you're living in truth, you're living in a way that is like, what is something that has stood the test of time? And that's where, again, going back to, some people don't like the law of the Ten Commandments. Well, the law of the Ten Commandments actually protects us. Like, it's actually really good for us. If I choose to live those things out, I'm actually protecting myself from me making bad decisions that will hurt my future, hurt my current circumstances as well, and hurt other people. And so how can I then figure out and understand what that truth is to where I can consistently live it out? And that's where we go back to just even you, not me. It's, for me, you, not me means I live for you, Jesus, not for myself. But then also because of my faith and because of what he's done for me, I then live for you, Jared. I live for the people in front of me and try to love and serve and care about you more than myself. And so that's how I choose to live it out, is the only way that I can truly protect my relationships and protect myself for the future, because I can't control every circumstance, but what I can control are the decisions that I make, the words that I speak, and how I treat other people. And if I can do it in a manner of how we try to teach people with you, not me, is putting other people above myself, I'm going to be really well protected as far as not making a lot of bad decisions, because that means I'm stepping back, thinking about what I say, what I do, how does it affect the person in front of me, and then the next person they interact with, or the group of people that I'm in front of.
It's super helpful. If you want to get into now the definition of grace, how would you define that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. I mean, it's getting something that we don't deserve. It's getting a gift, being given something that's positive, that even though we've done something wrong, someone has grace for us. And, again, it goes back to with my faith, what Christ did on the cross. He gave me freedom from my sin, even though I didn't deserve it, even though I made bad mistakes. I've made, decisions that have hurt myself, hurt other people. But also that grace, I believe, in a bigger picture, means that looking at somebody and knowing that, hey, I've been forgiven for mistakes that I've made, for sins that I've committed, and I'm not going to hold your mistakes over your head forever. I'm going to forgive you because I've been forgiven. And I think that's one of the biggest things is we forget that, again, whether even if you take faith out of it, I've done things that my wife has forgiven me of, that my kids have forgiven me of, that people I work with, friends of mine, have forgiven me of. And again, if we've been given an extended forgiveness and people have said, that's okay, I forgive you, and move on, well, then why should we not give that to somebody else? Why can we not have grace and mercy and forgiveness for other people when we've received it ourselves? Because if we're all honest, I still make mistakes, and I want to be forgiven when I make a mistake, because a lot of times I don't even mean to do it. A lot of times maybe I say something with the wrong tone, maybe I do the wrong thing. It's not because I wanted to do something maliciously bad. It's because I wasn't thinking and I was just reacting because I was, so much stuff was on top of me. And I made a poor decision. And the hope is that when someone shares in truth that we did something that hurt them, and then they've extended grace towards us for that, my heart is, hey, I'm really repentant. I didn't mean to do that. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And thankfully, hopefully they do. and then you change and you turn and go a different direction and you don't do that anymore. At least you try not to do it anymore because again, none of us is perfect. We're going to fall short. But the biggest thing is understanding when grace has been given to us or when we extend grace to other people. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to live it out 100% perfectly going forward. But if we love them, then we're going to be willing to do that.
Thanks for being ahead of the game there and hitting the practical application before I even asked you for it. That's great.
Sorry.
That's perfect. Let's kind of get into the dangers of falling into the ditches that are on either side of the balance here. It's really easy for people to lean too far into just giving grace or just giving truth. Sometimes that can be dependent on personalities or people's background and their experiences or just people's preferences or a lot of times even like how people want to be spoken to themselves. They often then like project onto other people and just assume that, well, I like receiving truth, so I'm just going to deal out truth. Like I'm going to be the neighborhood truth dealer. Like other people just want to be like, compassionate Chris over here, just like, always being super kind and, and maybe they want to not step on someone's toes or not hurt someone's feelings. And they think that truth might cause that to happen. So they're always only encouraging or always only giving people positivity when that relationship or friendship maybe could benefit from a bit of truth for now and then to help the person course correct or just reflect or yeah, help them to grow and get better. So, talk to me about both truth without grace and grace without truth and some of the ditches that people can fall into by emphasizing one over the other.
Yeah. And actually, I love the analogy that you just kind of at least, threw up there is the balance of go off one side of the ditch, too far into truth, and the other side go off too far into grace versus staying in that balance. Because I talk to my boys and people every day about, making decisions that you turn off and you run off the road into a ditch instead of staying on the road to amazing. But I think you're exactly right. It's almost like we're on a bridge and, both sides are bad. If it's all grace or if it's all truth, that's not good. And I think that's one of the hardest things is because some people say like, oh, well, just be compassionate, just be you, and just I'll forgive you and just do what you want. And the problem with that is that's selfish. And some people are like, no, what do you mean that's not selfish? That's caring about other people, saying that it's okay to do all these things. Well, no, it's selfish because you basically are saying you do whatever you want, but also you can't then look back at me and tell me I can't do whatever I want. So it's really a selfish statement to say, hey, just do whatever you like. That's fine. That's not because it's not caring about other people too, because some of us blindly, some of us purposefully make decisions that hurt other people. And if we just stand there and watch somebody do that, that's not grace. That's actually not loving them well. And that's where truth comes in is you have to share that truth. If all it is grace, 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 then you let somebody keep making bad decisions, get further over on those rumble strips to where they're going to fall off into the ocean and potentially drown and destroy their lives. I mean, even just like when you look at parenting as a kid, or parenting my kids, parenting is one of the greatest teaching applications in life, and I've learned so much. But part of it is if I just have grace for my kids, and I just want them to be my friend, if I just want them to like me, and I don't ever step up and speak truth and hold them accountable and punish them, and speak truth in their lives, I don't love them. There's the old saying in the Bible that says, spare the rod, spoil the child, and it's true. If you don't ever discipline your child, if all you do is say, "Okay, yeah, go do what you want," they're gonna learn to become a narcissist, which I mean, you said something about that today. Some of the parenting that's happened in years past in the 80s and 70s, somewhere around there, that time frame, we just created a bunch of little mini dictators and little narcissists running around that think just because they showed up that they're great instead of like actually having a work ethic and caring about other people and understanding how we impact other people versus just wanting it for ourselves and building up our own self-confidence and self-esteem. Another issue with just grace, grace, grace is sometimes it's actually cowardice. Sometimes it's because we're afraid to say truth to somebody, to stand up to them. And again, back to you want your kids to be your friends. Yeah, you want your kids to love you and to care about you, but also if you don't care about them, speak truth into them, you don't love them. And the worst thing you can be is just your kid's friend. You have to be their parent. Same with a spouse. Marriages unfortunately fall apart because people just keep letting somebody do something that deep down is driving them nuts and they'll never say anything. So it's actually cowardice. And then they finally just say, forget it, I'm out and I'm done. And the problem is if all we do is just keep taking all these things and bottling them up, then eventually we just explode. But conversely, if all you do is speak truth, if all you do is what is run around and keep telling people like, boom, you've done this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, and people just see you as someone that has never asked them like, hey, are you okay? Taking the time to understand what they're going through or why they're making mistakes. Sometimes maybe they haven't been trained well. Sometimes maybe they've never encountered this scenario in their life and they've never seen it modeled well, so they're making bad decisions. So can you have some grace and some mercy along with the truth you need to share, especially whether it's a coach, a parent, a spouse, a leader in the workplace? If you don't take the time to actually say hard things to people, not that you're trying to create confrontation, but you need to help people understand when they're making mistakes and they're hurting other people as well as themselves. And so when you do speak that truth, if it is only truth, then people never want to listen to you because you become like this like clanging, gong and cymbal that all you do is run around and just hit people with truth bombs, and you never actually care about them. You never, because again, I think part of the reason relationships fall apart is because we don't have the balance of truth and grace. When someone makes a mistake, we just say, you're bad and you did this, and we leave, versus unconditionally loving them and saying, what you did is not great, but I love you anyway. Like I'm maybe everybody else is going to abandon you, but I'm going to stick by you. I'm going to stay with you. And that's what's missing in marriages today is sure there are times that divorce is a necessary, and I hate that that's even the case because that hurts so many people. It has generational impact. But we need more people that can say what you're doing is wrong, whether it's towards our kids, whether it's towards me, whether it's whatever it is. And but then also saying, but I'm going to love you through it. I'm here with you. I'm not going to leave you. And we're going to walk forward in this journey together. And that's the same with relationships, friendships, workplace, sports teams. I mean, you have people falling short, in games or practices or whatever. Do you just toss them out, or do you actually try to, love them and help them work through it and let them know that you truly care? That's what unconditional love is.
Yeah, I think that a great just like quick tagline that people can remember is to think about the person and the problem, not just to address one or the other. If you only think about solving the problem and addressing the problem, obviously then you fall into the truth ditch. If you only think about the person and caring for them, and just, giving them kind of a free pass, then obviously you fall too far onto the gray stitch. And I was thinking of this just because this week it's the time of this recording, it's the U.S. Open for golf at Oakmont. Oakmont's like one of the hardest courses in the world, and the U.S. Open, they make it, I mean, laughably difficult. They're just like so impossible for the pros. Like they asked actually Jason Day, who used to be the world number one, this Australian guy, the other day, like, what do you think just, the average 15 handicapper would shoot out here? And he's like, I mean, if they can even finish 18 holes, like they would shoot like 150. Like it's just, it's just like it's just that hard. Like, and when you think of falling into, the ditch on one side or the other side, it's like it's really difficult. It's like trying to hit the fairway at the US Open. Like it's 20 yards wide. You're trying to land a, 250 to 300 yard shot in like a bowling alley. You got 6-inch rough on one side and then, bunkers all down the other side. It's just like, yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So I think like for the listeners, it's like there's a lot of days when you're going to need to use this on yourself in terms of truth and grace. Some days, like you're going to have to give yourself a bit of grace for screwing up. Um, Other days, you might have to give yourself a bit of truth and like confront yourself and be like, man, I'm missing the mark right now. So I think that hopefully that's kind of a helpful takeaway as well for some listeners who are like all of us, doing battle with this and trying to find an optimal balance every single day. And I guess speaking of that, like there's going to be difficult moments in relationships, conflicts, mistakes, like these things are all going to come up. Someone's going to be overtired and they're going to lash out, or someone's going to forget that they were supposed to do something, and then, that creates a problem. Um, what are some key ways to handle moments like that? Just keeping grace and truth in mind, but also just, general principles for being able to navigate those difficult moments in relationships.
I think the hard thing is, again, too often we're so quick to just react and respond, and oftentimes we might say something that we want to say or that we're feeling that actually ends up just adding gasoline to the fire. And so it's just taking the time to step back and think. Um, which is, I mean, again, that's why you know me is what it is. It's like it's a literally it's a 2 second reminder of okay, what is my mindset in this interaction, and is it all about myself or is it about the person in front of me? And yeah, if it's all about ourselves, we're going to get pretty bent out of shape pretty quickly with a lot of conversations or just driving down the road. If we just think about ourselves, we're going to get really frustrated when somebody cuts us off or whatever. But often that person had no idea they were even cutting us off. They were just thinking about how they could get to wherever they're going, or they were missing their turn. So they had to hurry up and get over. And who knows, could be rushing to the hospital for a sick family member. And we don't know what's going on. So it's, again, stepping back and taking a moment to think about kind of, what we've talked about in the past, even with one thing. There's always at least one thing happening in somebody's life that we don't know. And can we give them a flyer and say, you know what, I'm not going to take the way that they said that personally. And even if they meant it personally, it's a way to calm yourself down. Because there are some people that love to push buttons, and there are some people that try to do it purposefully. But the worst thing you can do is just is speak quickly versus being slow to speak. And I think, again, back to being slow to speak, slow to get angry. It's a really good thing to lean on. Um, and I think just really understanding that, back to, with truth and grace, is having that balance, but also that grace is knowing that, hey, we've made mistakes too. And that's where the old saying of hurt people. But then if you add on to that, loved people love people, forgiven people forgive people. And I think if we really remember, and this is why for me, I have to get up in the morning and, whether it's reading scripture or just doing devotional, um, it helps remind me of who I am and what's happened in my life. And it gives me a better mindset as far as how I go into the day, that the fact that I have been forgiven. I am loved. And how can I go forward living out of that versus living out of a place of not knowing that I'm loved, or forgetting that I'm loved, and forgetting that I've been forgiven, and forgetting what my future is. And then you hold things so tightly whenever one thing goes the wrong way, you just, again, you lose your mind, you speak truth, and you don't have much grace. So I think, erring on grace, but also remembering that if we don't actually hold truth and have a biblical worldview, or at least a worldview that really takes into account other people and how we impact them, we're going to make a lot of bad decisions with our truth if we don't have a true understanding of truth.
Thanks for the conversation today, Chris. For all the listeners, take a moment maybe just to reflect on the past week, maybe the past 24 hours, and maybe even just some of your natural tendencies. Are you more truth oriented or more grace oriented in your personality and communication? And how might you be able to intentionally practice this in the coming weeks?